I think this is easier. You can do this, but it's really hard. And actually, I can't do it anymore because my shoulders are so screwed up. So instead of moving your whole arm, make this a neutral pivot point so the fingers are up, the elbow's dropping, your hip's getting out of the way. He's opened up now. You smack the crap out of his ribs in a kind of loving and world peace kind of way. And then you drop him with the ikkyo. Can you see how your own stiffness makes it hard? Really strong. If it's right, it's that much effort because it's essentially a neutral pivot point. We were talking about this the other day. Okay? If you're moving your arms, you're trying to move his arm too. And the whole time you're trying to move his arm, he's saying no. So he got the grab. Okay. The acceptance of the energy of the attack is to say, yeah, you got the grab. Inside that, there's this rotation. So he's holding on to something that rotated. Do you see when I'm talking about the whole neutral rotation points, etc., which are just efficient because they're energetically neutral? Okay, the stillness. You got a CD. I used to say records, but nobody has records anymore. Okay, CD spinning like crazy, but where's the still point? Where the spindle is, right at the center. That's not moving at all. It's the true point. I mean, geometry. There's a point. The point doesn't even have mass. So that geometrical point is still all the time. So I actually want the contact points to be the still points, the jiku point in Japanese. And then that whole concept starts to extend to you on a much more, internal level. There's a still point in you. When you're moving, there's a still point inside you. That's the emotional still point. So you might be putting out a lot of energy, but inside you're absolutely quiet. Okay? And the Japanese have terms for this too, which I don't remember the Japanese, but the translation is they talk about motion within stillness and stillness within motion. So I can be sitting here with my sword, looking like I'm completely still, and inside, I'm vibrating. There's movement all over the place. Because if I get truly still, I've gone to, it's like having your car in neutral at a drag race. When that light goes doot, 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 and hits green, the other guy's burning the clutch. If you had your car in neutral and then you thought you could put it in gear and then go, he's down there now. So inside, there's total movement. Outside, it can be still as can be. And then the opposite of that is lots of movement. And inside, just as still as can be. Okay? This is what I keep talking to you about. Okay? When you start moving, everything's moving. People get excitable. The more they go at it, the more they ramp up. You need to find a way to have the opposite of that. The more I move, the calmer I get. Randori is really good for that, because if you can't do that, you get buried in your randoris repeatedly. There's a certain amount to be said for negative reinforcement. People who say negative reinforcement doesn't work are wrong. They've never been hit over the head by a bokken. You get hit over the head by a bokken once, whatever it was that you just did that got you hit, you'll never do it again. I can guarantee you. There's a move in one of our forums where almost everybody at the beginning, the guy presses your sword down and then goes to cut your neck, and you come up with it, and then you flip it over, and almost everybody at some point early on when they're learning it flips too soon and clocks themselves in the head with the other guy's bokken. Only once. I've never seen anybody do it more than that because it's so unpleasant. After that, they were real careful to make sure they were up here before they did the move. So, it's the same thing. You're doing randori and you feel like you get too excited. You either calm down or you keep having randoris where you get buried. When most people figure out a way to start relaxing. It might take them a few tries, but they do because they don't want to keep losing. So right here, this relaxation is, boom. No, did you have to be down there yet? I haven't done all the other cool stuff I was going to do to you. He knows what's coming. He just said, okay. Okay. Boom. There's the line. bam, that nails him. This messes up his structure. Now, see how you're planting on that? If I really smacked you here, what would your body do? It would go like that. Your weight would go off that foot onto that back foot if I really smacked a couple of these ribs. At this point, you really wouldn't be able to kick me here, not with any power. And I enter inside it. I have this. I still have the leg clear that we were talking about. Okay? Boom, boom. Something's on the floor, you can step on it. Old style, Daito-ryu, they'd tip you over. They'd get you to commit a hand to your support when you hit the ground. Then they'd step on the hand, and then they'd tie you up in knots. Okay? This is another good thing. Anytime you see something lying on the floor, there's absolutely no reason you couldn't step on it and pin it in place. Then all those fancy pins, well, they're cool, but if I'm stepping on your hand, you're probably not moving it. Okay? A little more. We'll go slow. You don't have to experience it full speed the second time. Okay? Now that you believe it. He said, why don't I let go there and grab the sword? Well, okay. What I showed him first was when he goes to do that, this hit him. Then when he grabbed that, this came over. There's your Nikyo. It's not that he couldn't try that. There's just other stuff that happens. So it's good to ask those questions. Don't just sit there and go, this is the way everything works. Because somebody's going to let go. Somebody's going to try and counter you. And your practice is, when the guy does that, look at what that presents. Because his point that this hand is holding the saya and only the thumb is holding the guard in is well taken. You know, if he really could let go here, grab it really quickly, and I'd stand there and let him do that, that would be you know, I could see somebody trying that. He just tried it. Makes sense to me. You have to understand that the Jeet Kune Do guys have a principle for this. I like Jeet Kune Do because they have principle-based instruction. They have names for all this stuff. One of their principles is abbreviated CFP, which stands for constant forward pressure. It's not so easy for him to disengage if I'm continuously going to the center. He comes here, I'm already in. See, to even grab the sword, he had to back up. As he did that, I smacked him here, and I'm still in. Now, he likes to break connection. He goes into this total defense, lets go, and freezes himself, and that's why I kicked him before, because it doesn't actually help. But if he keeps the grip, long before he can pull this out, this one, remember? Okay. Try and pull it out. I defy you to pull a sword out if I'm moving towards you. Now, if I contend with him, he'll go right through my thumb. My thumb's not strong enough to hold in. So the first thing I do, if he grabs it, is I don't contend with him. So he's pulling, and I'm moving inside it. Inside that, I run the spiral. Now he's down again. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to ask. And then you have to figure out what the next application is. That's called Henkawaza. Okay? Situation changed right in the middle of the technique, and the thing I was originally doing isn't actually what's going to happen now. I have to be able to seamlessly and without any hesitation at all just move into the next thing. Okay? So that's Henkawaza, where you make an adjustment in the mid-technique and let it flow into something else that's now more appropriate. That's why this is on some level considered to be a moving meditation. Okay? You have a Zen teacher here. Okay? What do you do when you sit? You know, you're trying to quiet your mind down. However, experience will show you that if you try really hard to quiet your mind down, it just gets noisier. The harder you try to suppress your thoughts, the more they come up. So you can be sitting there going, okay, I'm not going to have any thoughts. Oh, shit, that was a thought. And you drive yourself completely crazy. So you have to learn to just be in that present instant. And when a thought comes up, you note it, but you don't feed it with any energy, and you let it pass away. And you keep your concentration on whatever it is you were concentrating on. It might be breath counting. There's different things that people do. But you don't resist that thing, okay? Which means you're always in the present instant. That's why this is true. It's like if the situation changes and I'm fighting with him, it's because I'm actually in the past in my mind, still trying to get a technique that's actually no longer there. So it's actually good to have your partners do that stuff. You just don't want to do it when the guy's still trying to learn the first basic move, because that's like getting ahead of things. Police training, this is one of the worst problems, because you want to show a guy a basic move and get him to learn how to do this spiral, and he's going, well, what if they did this, and what if they did that, and what if they did that? And half the time the guy who's asking you that can't even take what would happen if you'd showed him. You know, you got to go, well, you know, and the guy's, well, I don't know if that would work on the street. If I actually did it to him, he gets injured because he's an old fart and he doesn't exercise and he's out of shape. So you can't really show him. I used to always try and make sure when I did training that I would have one of my Aikido guys along with me sometimes. And I'll say, okay, you ask the question. Let me do it on this guy because he can actually take the bad thing that's about to happen to him. And then I go, boom, and everybody goes, oh. And do they want to practice that? Not on your life. And they usually behave after that, you know. But, you know, cops are type A personalities, and they have to be out there. They're competitive. To be out on the street, you've got to have the I'm going to win attitude, or you probably should get a different job. You have to win. Consequences to not winning with those bad people are bad for you. But the problem is when you get them in training, they have that attitude with each other. I spent more of my time in training trying to keep the guys in the class from hurting each other. Because, you know, this guy's going to do the takedown, and his other partner's already trying to show him that he can't do it on him. And then he reefs on it, and then the guy's elbow goes. And you're going, you know, couldn't we just fall down so the other guy could learn the move? But that's not their attitude. They're very difficult guys to train. He's over here laughing. He knows. It's pretty funny.
Well, and they're training for basic training. I'm not talking about clinics that would help them, and most of them won't go to anyway. All right? But their basic training is so basic and poor, and their general attitude is, screw him, I'll shoot him.
Yep.
And the attitude about being a personality is, I'm going home tonight, period. So if I have to shoot him, or whatever, if it's between him going home or me going home, I'm going home.
Yeah.
That's the attitude that keeps him alive, but it's terrible to try to train somebody.
Well, it is, and it's also what they fail to deal with is the fact that once you've done that, do you know how many officers are divorced after they shoot somebody? Or how many of them are out on disability leave and are a mess? I mean, you know, they start off going, well, you know, I'll just shoot him. Yeah, but your life is really not worth living when you've shot somebody. You know, you get suspended, you're in all these hearings, you know, everybody second guesses your decision making. Half the time the department immediately steps back and tries to figure out how you violated their policies so they can't get sued. You're left out there on your own. It's really better to have some other tools in the toolbox, because then, you know, you can end up not shooting the guy, and then you get to go home and nobody complains. Your life is good, your wife is happy, you don't have to drink all that alcohol. But getting guys to understand that is a little more difficult. So we were lucky up in Washington State. The guy who was the head of DT training was a student of Dan Inosanto and was actually a really skilled martial arts guy. And he was predisposed to allow people who weren't officers to come into the academy and help them. So I worked with a lot of the master instructors, who are the guys who train the instructors. And these guys were good, and they also had a lot of good background. So I could contribute what I knew. Then they, as officers, would take it out to the guys out on the street and do training for them. Because those guys don't want to listen to people like me, because I'm not a cop. You know, how could I understand what they need? So, because they had it set up where I could contribute to the instructors, then that stuff went out. That was a much better system than my dealing with the officers, because they don't believe you anyway most of the time. You usually have to drop one of them really hard before they pay attention. Then they go, "Wow, that was cool." So, you know, it was really funny because I got into it because I had all these skills that they really need to know, which are the low-level force application. How can you restrain somebody without hurting him? And I got in there and I discovered the cops were really, you know, oh, okay. You know, even though they do that every day, that wasn't what tweaked them. When you showed them how to dismantle somebody, they'd all go, "Whoa, that's really cool." You know, they're not really they don't quite understand how the low-level force would benefit them, but they're worried about surviving. So when you show them how to take somebody out, they get really excited. But the rest of the thing is like, oh, yeah, okay. But the guy's a jerk. I'll just bap him. But then they get in trouble. Okay, so anyway, that was your Ikkyo. Okay? How about, let's see, what's the one sensei? We've been going this way. How about this way? He's coming in here. We'll do it. I could do it off that one, but this one. So he's still thinking about punching. So what I'm going to do is move this way and neutralize the punch line. So what's the footwork? I did it twice. Can you tell me? You were looking at the wrong thing. I looked up when I looked where your eyes were, and you're looking at my face. It's like, ooh, that's pretty cool. 2 repetitions, you should already be able to tell me what I did with my feet. You see how important that is? Satomi Sensei will do stuff once sometimes. He just got, and then go. If you can't at least pick up the feet, you get everybody standing, they get out there and they go. And then what they do is they look around the mat to find me or Kevin Choate or somebody who they think probably got it because they had no clue what Sensei just did. But you can train yourself to pick this stuff up. Watch the feet first. This is just an angle change. Here's the line. Front foot's a pivot point. I'm not even going to move it, but the back foot will realign. There's my new alignment. Okay? Got it? Boom. Now, if you want, you can grab this. Then they can't let go. But if he was serious about grabbing, he's probably pretty locked in here. Drop him. Now, keep the pressure there and draw the sword, draw yourself off the sword. Get the sai out of there. Then push the blade back in. You see I switched feet that time, just in case you weren't paying attention to the feet. So, angle change, drop. If it comes off like that, you just cut him. I don't care. Okay? But often, if the guy really committed, it doesn't come off. Boom. Draw. Orimi Tenkan. And there's the finish. So this is Nikkyo. If you go back to what I said at the very beginning, who's got a guard? Thank you. Thank you. So the saya comes up to where the guard is, the rest of its handle. Normally, your thumb's on the tsuba, keeping this thing from sliding out, okay? And actually, usually there's a little pressure fit here, if your saya fits properly. I have a couple that don't. I really need this, because if I tip over, it just slides out and falls on the floor. But what, if you watch samurai movies, that crucial moment when you know somebody's about to die, they'll do a close-up and it goes, and it pushes out. And there's usually some dramatic music. Boom. Somebody's about to die. Okay. In the Westerns, they took the little thong off the hammer on the pistol. Because a lot of the guys in the real holsters, so that the guns didn't joustle out when they're galloping around or doing whatever they do or in their bar fight, they had a little thong that went around the hammer. So it's the same thing. You'll get the close-up of the guy slipping that off, and you go, oh, somebody's going to die. Okay. So if you're here, looks good. But look where, in order to grab the thing, look where my elbow is. That's Sumiotoshi. If I can get his elbow, put your hand on your hip. Put your hand on your hip. See, if his hand's on his hip, his elbow's back here. We put people in that position to dump them. So if your sword's not in the right place to start with, you've actually already done that. So then when he comes in and I want to do the Nikkyo, I get to here, push. I actually don't have any structure. I'm collapsed. Who did that? He didn't do that. Whereas if my sword's where it should be, which is, the elbow is at my side, and then it just bends. The elbow's not behind me. The hand's in front of me, as opposed to the elbow behind me and the hand at my side. I need to be here. So then I have this great structure. Even if I'm late, I still have structure. Then when I move, he pushes into this. It's just totally relaxed. Then the key extension goes out the butt, just gently, and I drop. Look how relaxed my arms are. Okay? But you won't be able to do that if you've already collapsed. It's like letting a guy grab you here. Oops. Why'd you pull? See all this? I give you these weird openings, and you went exactly the opposite direction from what was going to win. If I collapse here, you should follow it in. Whoa! That's why I keep saying don't collapse. I'm always out. Then I rotate to take care of those problems. If he pushes really hard, I rotate to take care of it. And then his energy goes that way. Okay? But if he catches me collapsed, he's just in. And the rotation won't save me. Not at that point. It's too late. Does that make sense? So make sure you're holding your sword here. So you're not tempted to use your arms. This is all core. You're in here, you're going to have to use your arms and your shoulders. There's nothing else you can do. And not only will you have to do it, it won't work anyway. Okay? So don't.